So Julian, I feel like the old hand in this thing of having been chief executive
Absolutely.
of the CBSO for 16 years,
Yes.
but it's wonderful to be able to talk to you about your experiences of Birmingham, relatively new to the job, though.
Well, of
It's
course,
a city you know well.
I've only been here 3 months, although I do know the city fairly well, having played both in Town Hall, Symphony Hall, and actually quite a few other places in this city. But I don't know anything like as well as you. And the extraordinary thing that I've found is it's changed. The city's changed in the 3 months I've been here. Massive new openings with the station and the huge new John Lewis store. It's really exciting. Tram coming. But I mean, you must have seen much more than me.
The physical change in the time I've been here is unbelievable. I mean, even actually down near our building, CBSO Centre, which
Yes.
when it was built was pretty much the only building down that side of Broad Street. So there were lots and lots of sort of derelict warehouses, and now there's city centre living flats, there's businesses, there's the registry office, there's the mailbox, there's restaurants. It's unbelievable, the transformation, and I think it's going to carry on a lot.
It's got a real momentum behind it. You can feel that in the city.
I hope they give you sufficient warning before the wrecking ball is going to come and destroy your office for the next few years.
We're working on this very closely.
So, coming into the Conservatoire, which I know you knew well already, and Birmingham you knew well already, but there's a great weight of history here, isn't there, in this institution and the relationship with CBSO?
Well, yes, there really is. I mean, we have many, I think all through the years, we've had many of your players actually, on the staff at the Conservatoire for us, and we're developing that all the time. And I'm particularly personally pleased to see Eduardo Vasello with us, because of course he's your principal cello, and so this is something we're really keen to develop. I mean, in a sense, we're lucky to have such a great orchestra on our doorstep with these wonderful players who can be professors at the Conservatoire. And of course, for the people who are looking to do an orchestral career and play with a symphony orchestra, that they couldn't possibly have better training.
And I think, from our point of view, that's you see it in a few places in the UK, but certainly in Birmingham here, the connection and that sort of benefits flowing both ways, really, for the students, for it encourages the recruitment, but also for us, that's a supply, supply of musicians, having the teaching opportunities for our players here, and actually for things like the CBSO Youth Orchestra.
Exactly. I think a lot of our students are playing with the CBSO Youth Orchestra, and one of the things I've most liked about Birmingham, in a sense, is that it's a very compact city.
It is.
And you're sort of close to each other, and it helps. It really does.
Thinking back of the history of the Conservatoire in its sort of previous guises, the CBSO offices before they were in our own building on Berkeley Street were within the Adrian Boult Hall and the Conservatoire, the current Conservatoire building, which of course is soon to be moved. And even back to the School of Music, all of these institutions were here right in the centre of town. What's now the Birmingham Midland Institute, which is opposite the town hall where the orchestra used to play. So it's a very, very...
Oh, it goes back many, many years, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think Granville Bantock was our first principal, and he was recommended by Elgar, and of course Elgar was gave many lectures at the University of Birmingham. So these links are very, very strong.
And they were two of the founding fathers of the CBSO. I mean, the people who agitated after World War I to have a permanent orchestra built here. So it's I think the connections go very, very strongly. And even with something like the CBSO Youth Orchestra, that was founded by one of my predecessors, Blythe Major, but always there have been musicians who've been at the Conservatoire playing in that. It was previously the Midland Youth Orchestra, but now I think a huge number of our, particularly when the brass players, but also some of the more senior string players are Conservatoire musicians.
It's very good. I mean, I think the connections are getting stronger and stronger, and of course we're both lucky to have these incredible concert halls in Birmingham, Symphony Hall, Town Hall, wonderful halls, world-class halls, and it's wonderful for us sometimes to have this showcase before your Symphony Hall concerts. I mean, that's brilliant for the students and fantastic experience, so I really appreciate that.
I think those have been amazing events. We started doing them, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. But for the Conservatoire orchestra as well as for some of the solo instrumentalists such as pianists.
Absolutely.
To get the chance to play to a live audience, in Symphony Hall on that stage, is one of those moments that helps sort of raise your sights and raise the standard of what they're doing. And I know Mike Seal, who of course is a Conservatoire alumnus, our associate conductor, has found that the quality of the Conservatoire orchestra, as in terms of playing as an orchestra rather than the individual musicians that are playing together as an orchestra, has continued to grow really exponentially.
Absolutely. And of course Mike in particular is choosing some extraordinary and sometimes very difficult repertoire like Walton First Symphony. And I saw his rehearsal, which was quite brilliant actually. He gave them quite a hard time, but
he is amazing, and Mike is a very interesting figure on this, because I mean he's sort of Birmingham through and through, having studied here and made his home here, but that connection between what he does with the Birmingham School Symphony Orchestra, so young people music making, through the sort of elite performance end of CBSO Youth Orchestra and Conservatoire, and then actually also with the amateur side through groups such as the Sinfonia of Birmingham, and then the professionals of CBSO. It's very rare to have a conductor who can
cover
in their
spectrum.
career to do all those things, isn't
I
it?
agree. Yeah, he's a very interesting case. I think he's going to go a long way, because he's only been doing full-time conducting for a few years.
Really, that's right.
It?
Yeah, he was playing before that and conducting at the same time. But I think it's it's really unusual. We don't tend to think of music making as a sort of continuum in that sense.
Yes.
I think it's perhaps one of the problems in this country is that there's such sort of, if you're not careful, such a firm separation between this is what professionals do, this is the amateur sector, this is young people, and you're told constantly that the only way to have a career is to concentrate on the professional and the highest end. And I think you must be finding this with musicians that are being taught at the Conservatoire as well, is actually they need to have a range of skills.
Absolutely.
To have a successful
I think so. I think
days.
that they need to sort of be very open-minded about what they could and might do, not just be completely blinkered. And I think that even in terms of the music they're looking at, and that they need to sort of think outside the box a little bit. But of course some of them will succeed in having really good careers, in orchestras, and
absolutely.
I'm sure they will. And the standard seems to be improving all the time. I think Birmingham as a city musically is on a roll, really. I mean, the orchestra's playing as best as I've ever heard them. The Prom was absolutely fantastic in London. And we got the contemporary music group.
Yeah.
Obviously the
Just
Conservatoire.
back from Mexico.
It's very exciting.
Flying the flag.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting in this whole debate that's going on at the moment about a new concert hall in London, how everybody keeps coming back to the fact that we all know here, but it's good to shout about it, that Birmingham is incredibly well provided for with great venues, isn't it?
I think it's widely acknowledged that Symphony Hall is actually the best concert hall in the country.
Absolutely.
And Town Hall is not bad either, is it?
It's certainly the best 1,000 seat hall.
Yes. So we are actually slightly spoilt in Birmingham. And I don't know, maybe we don't shout about it enough, or I'm not really quite sure how we can shout about our musical scene, but it's certainly very healthy and on a high.
Moving to the new Conservatoire building in a few years' time, that gives so many more opportunities as well.
It really does. We've really covered every possible angle. I think we got at least 3 magnificent performing spaces in different ways. Everything seems to have been thought of. I had somebody come in to see me say, well, are you going to have a sprung floor for dance? And sure enough, we have got a sprung floor. Everything seems to have been thought of, and it's totally a musical building. Actually, a lot of the admin staff are not going to be in it. We're making everything, all the practice rooms, everything's going to be right there.
So in terms of, recruitment and persuading, because higher education is a competitive market these days, isn't it? And you're drawing students from all around the world.
I think we're very fortunate to have this great support from the university. To build a conservatoire at this moment in time is a big undertaking and a big investment. And it's going to cost a lot of money. And I think that they will be rewarded with a magnificent building.
Your market, like ours for new players, is totally international these days, isn't it?
I mean, actually, amazingly, 1 in 6 of our students are from China.
Really?
1 in 6.
1 in 6.
That's a
wow.
very high proportion. You know, and it's good. I think that they all learn from each other. You've got an extraordinary mix of international students there. And I think standards going up and up all the time.
Is that a lot of pianists or right
a lot of
across?
pianists, but it is across the board.
String players.
There's a lot of string players, a lot of violinists as well.
And they come to a city which, you know, is famous for being welcoming and friendly. And I think there's probably a lot that's done these days, particularly with the Chinese community, isn't it, to make them feel.
Well, of course, I think one point about Birmingham is that it's a lot cheaper to live in than London.
Yeah.
You know, accommodation, things, it's like massively cheaper.
Absolutely.
And that is, in a sense, it's a selling point for us. I don't know what is really on offer in London that isn't on offer here. They're probably a quarter of the price. Even ticket prices here are much cheaper.
Much cheaper, that's right, absolutely. And certainly there's enough to do. I mean, I'm sure London clearly has a greater volume of musical events, but certainly I've never, in 16 years I've been living in Birmingham, I've never found I could get to everything.
There's so much going on. And
more wouldn't be helpful.
Not just music. I mean, you look at the ballet and the theatre and the dance. It's fantastic here.
It is. Do you think, in terms of this sort of wider, you know, national debate over slightly too much economic investment and sort of cultural investment as well in London and more outside, do you think, you know, what more can we do in Birmingham to sort of make our case?
I actually think we're doing the right things. You know, we were obviously the development of the grand central shopping and right in the middle of New Street, the whole Bullring shopping centre. I think we are doing the right things. It's a question of, I think it's drip drip really. People will talk, and I mean that New Street station and it's absolutely packed. I mean, I was told on the opening of the John Lewis on the Saturday they had 100,000 people go through there. I mean, so it's word of mouth. I think in Birmingham's case, I think there's an awful lot on offer here, and perhaps people in London don't really realise it. But even now, before the high-speed rail, takes what, an hour and 20 minutes to get to New Street. And they have a great shopping experience. It can take you a lot longer than that to get across London. I was just thinking,
I mean, certainly when I lived south of the river, there were parts of London that took me that long to get to. Another thing that the Conservatoire and CBSO have in common is that we don't see, you know, our musical role as sort of, you know, beginning here and ending there. I mean, we're both institutions are engaged in a whole range of music making from sort of early years.
Yes, and we've actually just appointed a new outreach manager who's really got fantastic ideas about music education, and he used to be within Harmony at Telford, and so that's an area we're really looking at, because I think it's very important. You can't sort of be in an isolated bubble nowadays. You have to be out in the community and really introduce, particularly with the situation with music education, with so many cutbacks and it being out of the school curriculum now, we have to sort of work extra hard to make sure that children have access to music, because that's our future, isn't it?
It is.
In terms of players in this country and of course audiences.
I mean, you must worry about this as I do, that, you know, if music gets too marginalised in the curriculum and in the activities of, you know, what you might call normal schools. I mean, we know there are, you know, there's always going to be a small number of schools with absolutely outstanding music, whether they're fee paying or grammar or just ones with, you know, an inspiring teacher. But if we think about the broad majority of schools.
Yes, I've always believed that all children should have access to music. I think it's completely wrong to deny them. Actually, some of the greatest works of mankind, and they leave school, they go through school, and perhaps they never get to hear anything about them.
Absolutely.
And that shouldn't really be right in the 21st century.
You can't rely on just that coming through the parents or through a particular teacher. I mean, you know, that sort of universal access has to be available, even if people then, you know, choose not to.
I mean, you have a situation now where you might have a head teacher in a school who really believes in music, and often if they do, and music's introduced, as has been shown in actually many individual schools, that actually a school, even in special measures, if they introduce music, the whole results go up. So that's one thing that always disturbs me, is that politicians seem to think it's either or. Either you do the 3 R's or you do arts. It's not. Actually, the arts subjects help the other ones. It's been proved.
You make that argument in the sort of particular case to a particular minister or politician or civil servant, and they say, oh yeah, no, we can see that, let's have a trial. And it feels to me like we've had lots and lots and lots of trials, and there must be a point where you say, okay, the evidence is there, let's roll it out. And
you would have thought so.
I despair of ever reaching that point, really, sometimes.
I know, we have to just keep battling. I think that's all we can do.
One of the things I'm really pleased about is that students now coming to the Conservatoire, and even more so when you have your new site, that the ways in which they can engage in the CBSO are sort of many, aren't they?
Yes,
depending
there are.
on
and I
the
think
instrument.
we have the mentoring course where the students can sometimes play in the rehearsals.
That's
and all
right.
that. And I think that these kind of links, and of course the links with the professors who are with the CBSO and the students, it's a developing partnership, and it's always been strong, but I think it gets stronger by the week, really.
That's
and,
right.
and that's what we want.
And we've also got things such as the singing opportunities as well, because I don't know how you feel on this, but I always think for learning an instrument, actually learning to sing well is
extremely helpful. You learn to listen, and I think we're really encouraging more students to apply for the CBSO chorus, which is another great experience for them.
Absolutely. So I think that there's the chorus, there's the youth orchestra, there's the side-by-side training scheme, and there's the close connection with those particular professors. I know something like, for instance, the percussion.
Yes,
since Ada Spillett, our principal, became head of percussion. I know that there's very strong connection there, and of course, percussion section, the kind section where we quite frequently need a number of extra people for a few days.
No, that works brilliantly.
I think that
really
connection is really good. On some of the issues we've been discussing around sort of the place of Birmingham, building audiences, lobbying, and this sort of music education right up from grassroots level, it seems to me there's a lot more we can do.
I think there is a lot more we can do, and I think that's coming back to that outreach work. We want to be the Conservatoire, and I'm sure the orchestra want to be right at the centre of what's going on in the region.
Absolutely.
And I think that perhaps we need to do a little bit more work there to make sure that actually a young musician, maybe in a place like Warwick, thinks, should I go to London or Birmingham? We want them to come to Birmingham.
Yeah, that's really true. And I think as perhaps the politics of this area becomes a bit more regional rather than just city-based, I mean, I think the geography of that helps us both, really, because,
Definitely.
you're the only music college for 100 miles in any direction, and we're the only orchestra for 100 miles in any direction. So actually, you're quite right. I mean, we should really be drawing our sphere of influence from right across, not just the West Midlands, but the whole of the middle of the country.
We really have, the standard is so high, and I think people come to hear a great concert in Symphony Hall, or and in the new Conservatoire, our concert hall, which will be a nice size of about 500 people, a different kind of hall on offer in Birmingham. I think that they'll just be amazed by the standards, and it kind of feels friendly.
Yes, that's right, and the fact that there's then so much artistic life sort of all on your doorstep there, and the more we can find ways of sort of binding students into the cultural life of the city, I mean, the tickets are already very cheap for them, but getting involved in helping organising things, all the opportunities for students to learn about actually the business side of what they need, which I'm sure
we're really stressing that all the time, and we're having that. In fact, we had Zoe Poyce coming in, from the CBSO to talk to us. She of course was with us before, so these links are very, very strong.
And actually, today's musicians need to be sort of mini cultural entrepreneurs, don't they?
They need to think of more than just playing their instrument. They need to think how they're going to get a job, how they're going to get work. It's obviously an important part of what we should be doing.
Absolutely. Well, I think there's obviously ways in which we can help with that as well. But I think the more areas we can find to collaborate, the richer it will be for both organisations, and the better the recruitment, and that drives the quality and the success of both.
Well, I think any student that comes to study at the Conservatoire is really lucky in a way to have these incredible benefits on their doorstep.
Absolutely. Well, may there be many more, and as you move into the new building, I think that's a fantastic opportunity to people who are now thinking about where they want to study for the next 3 years or 4 years or so.
They're coming at a really exciting time. I think I feel quite envious of the facilities they're going to have. I never had anything like that. We're going to have recording studios and just spaces where they could do, for jazz, all the different styles, and it's wonderful.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to welcoming them to Birmingham.